Hello, I know I'm super late on this trend, but tonight I'm going to do my ABC name video. For letter A, my favorite names are Audrey and Arden. The name Audrey makes me think of Audrey Hepburn, and she was such a classy, beautiful woman. And I also had a student named Audrey a couple years ago, and she was such a sweet little girl. And her brother's name was Arden, and that was the first time I've ever heard that name, and I thought it was such a cool name. For letter B, my favorite names are Bella and Bennett. Even though I'm not a Twilight fan at all, and Bella is very Twilighty, I would still use it. I think it's such a pretty name, and I love that it means beautiful in both Spanish and Italian. And Bennett, I think, is a great alternative to the name Benjamin, which I like, and I would use it as a middle name, but I think Bennett is just, it sounds a lot fresher and new. For letter C, my favorite names are Clara and Conrad. Clara is one of those names that you don't hear very often anymore. It was popular a long time ago, like in the early 1900s, and I think it's just so pretty, and I would love to meet a little girl named Clara. And Conrad, I think, is really cool. Where I live, the name Connor is super popular, and I think Conrad is a nice alternative to that name, and I think it's really cool. For letter D, my favorite names are Daria and Desmond. I think I'm the only one in the world who likes the name Daria. There was a TV show on MTV, a cartoon called Daria, and that's the first time I ever heard that name, and I loved it, and I still do. Desmond is a Lost name. I'm a huge Lost fan, and Desmond was one of my favorite characters on there, and he made me love the name. For letter E, my favorite names are Evangeline and Evander. Evangeline is another Lost name for me. The character Kate, the actress who plays her name is Evangeline Lilly, and I think the name is so pretty. And Evander, I love the meaning. It means good man, and I just love that name. For letter F, I picked Freya and Felix. Freya is one of those names I probably would never use, but I think it's really pretty. I think the reason why I wouldn't use it is because my friend Matt used to have a dog, a Chihuahua named Freya, so I kind of think of a Chihuahua when I think of the name Freya, but I still think it's gorgeous. And Felix is really, really cool too. For letter G, I picked Gemma and Gideon. I think Gemma is a nice alternative to the ever so popular Emma. I think it's rated #1 right now, and I can see why people love it. I think Emma is such a pretty name. So Gemma is just very similar, but at the same time, not very used and not very popular at all. And Gideon, I think, is such a cool name. First time I heard it there was a long time ago. There was an MTV VJ named Gideon Yago, and that's the first time I heard that name. And it's also a character in the movie, the Scott Pilgrim movie, and I think it's a really cool name. For letter H, I picked Hazel and Henry. I think Hazel is so cute, and I would love to meet a little girl named Hazel. I don't think I'm brave enough to use it, but I think it's really cool. And Henry was actually supposed to be my name if I was a boy. And I used to always tease my mom. I'm like, oh, I can't believe you're about to name me Henry, but I would actually use it. I think it's a really cool name. For letter I like Isla and Irwin. Isla I love, Irwin not so much. I just had a really hard time finding an I name for a boy. For letter J, I picked Juliette and Jasper. Juliette is a name I'm definitely going to use as a middle name for my daughter. It's a nice way to honor my brother and sister because my brother's name is Julian and my sister's name is Lisette. So Juliette is like the perfect marriage of those two names. And Jasper, I think Jasper is such a cool name. For letter K, I picked Kasia and Kellen. Kasia is gorgeous. I don't think I would ever use it, but I think it's really pretty. And Kellen, I think, is really cute. For letter L, I picked Luna and Leo. I really like the name Luna. I think it's a little bit hippie-ish for me to use, but I still really like it. And Leo is my favorite boy's name. I can definitely see myself having a son named Leo. I think it's short and sweet and just really cool. For letter M, I picked Matilda and Miles. I really like the name Matilda. It used to be my favorite name for a while, and it just recently went down on my, I think it's like #5 for me right now, but I still really, really like it. And Miles, I think, is really, really cool. For letter N, I picked Norah and Nolan. Norah is my favorite girl's name. I love that name. I like it with the H at the end. I think it looks incomplete without the H. And Nolan is really, really cool. I really like that name. My boyfriend's nephew's name is Jacob Nolan, and that's the first time I ever heard that name, and I actually really, really like it. For letter O, I picked Olivia and Owen. Olivia is beautiful, but super popular, especially where I live. I've probably had like 6 or 7 students named Olivia. And Owen, I think, is really, really cool too. For letter P, I picked Phoebe and Piers. I really like Phoebe. I'm not crazy about Piers, but I think Phoebe's a really cool name. For letter Q, I picked Quinn and Quinlan. Q is kind of hard, and I know Quinn and Quinlan are actually very similar. Quinn was actually another name I got from that show, Daria. Quinn was Daria's sister on that cartoon. And Quinlan, it's just alright to me. I'm not a crazy fan of Quinlan. For letter R, I picked Ruby and Roman. I think Ruby's really cute. I kind of see it better like on a dog or a cat rather than a person, but it's my favorite girl R name. And Roman is really, really cool. I've actually had a student named Roman a couple of years ago, and he was really hyper and crazy, but I love the name, and surprisingly he actually made me like the name a little bit more. For letter S, I picked Susanna and Stellan. I became a fan of Susanna from that movie Girl Interrupted. The main character's name is Susanna Kaysen, and I think that name is so pretty. Not crazy about the nickname Susie. I would definitely try to avoid that, but I think Susanna is so pretty. And Stellan, I think, is a really cool name. It means star, which I think is really cool. For letter T, I picked Talia and Theo. Talia I probably would never use, but I still think is pretty. And Theo I think is really cool. Letter U was really hard. I could not find U names. For U, I picked Uma and Ulric. I never even heard of the name Ulric, but I found it on babynames.com and it works. Uma, the only reason why I picked that is because of Uma Thurman. For letter V, I picked Vada and Vaughn. Vada makes me think of the movie My Girl, and that's the first time I heard that name, and I love it. I don't think I would ever use it, but I still really like it. And Vaughn, I like, but I don't know. I think a Spanish kid named Vaughn just sounds weird to me. Maybe as a middle name, but definitely not a first name. For letter W, I picked Winter and Walker. I don't think I'm brave enough to use Winter, but I think it's really pretty. And Walker, I'm not a fan of at all, but it was the only W name that I can actually kind of stand. For letter X, I picked Xaria and Xavier. I think Xavier is a really cool name, and Zaria is actually pretty cool too, but I just think that names that start with letter X look weird. I don't know why, but I just think they look odd and like they're spelled wrong or something. For letter Y, Y was actually pretty hard for me too. I picked Yvonne and Yale. Again, I would never use those, but Y is a really hard letter to pick names for. And for letter Z, I picked Zara and Zander. I love Zara. It's one of my favorite names, but I kind of hate that clothing store's name is Zara, because a lot of people associate that name with the clothing store. And Zander, I think, is really cool. It's a nice alternative to Alexander, and I just think it's really nice. And I picture like a really cool guy with the name Zander. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Bye.